Greetings out there in YouTube land. This is Morris Man. As always, I thank you guys for coming to my channel. I posted a pretty interesting video the other day giving a shout out to the Jewel Food Store night crew staff in the 80s, because I used to work for Jewel Food Store for about 17 years, and that was a pretty good experience. I got nothing but good things to say about my old company. Now the corporate thing's a whole nother story, and maybe one day I'll share some stories with you regarding that, but they're not positive, so I might not just even do that. But anyway, so I got a lot of responses for people that used to work for Jewel Food Store and work still for Jewel Food Store, and they say, hey man, thanks for giving us a shout out. You know, I'm proud that I work for this company, and it's just nice to know that you actually had a history with the company and you had a positive experience. So they said, you know, share some more stories with you guys during the time I stayed there. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to call this Jewel Food Store's Tales Part 2. And in my first video, I was giving shout out to people that I personally work with, that I remember working with. And there was one gentleman, I didn't remember his first name. His last name was Cunningham. And then it came to me eventually, Keith Cunningham. Keith actually had a twin brother, and they both model. And I told you the story in the first video when I went to the barber shop. Back in the day, they had those pictures where you said, you know, give me the number 2. And they had these models modeling a haircut. Keith Brothers, one of those guys, and one of those things on the wall, the selection, haircut selections. So, and also, I do remember Keith was married to one of our co-workers' daughter, and the lady that we used to work with, name was Clydia, if I'm not mistaken. And Keith married her daughter. Because when I met Keith, he was in his early 20s, because I think I started at Jewel's when I was like 17. And Keith was just about finished up college. And once he graduated, they gave him a promotion to night crew manager. Then he became a store manager on 95th and 95th in Ashland. One of my favorite Jewel Food Stores, because it was walking distance from where I used to live at back then. And so, you know, I didn't want to not include his full name because it did come to me. And I wrote some of these things down so I won't forget them. So when I'm doing this video, I can mention them. I mentioned a guy that I used to work with named Daryl. And I told you in the other video, Daryl got hit by a car. After he got hit by a car, knocked him unconscious. And the guy seen him get hit by a car, ran across the street and stole his gym shoes. It was messed up. I remember also one day, because Daryl at that time didn't have a car. And we worked nights, so it's like, you know, it's kind of dangerous to be out there trying to get back home, getting back and forth, trying to get home. And it was a park, or is a park, I think it's on 84th and King Drive. I think it's called Avalon Park. And a lot of bad things happened in that park. I remember recently a police officer whose father lived across the street from the park was shot and killed. And I think he was only in his late 20s. But Daryl was, you know, going home one night, because we would get off sometime about 11, 12 o'clock. So Daryl got out the store, walked down the street, walked through the park, and there was some guys in the park. And one thing I did admire about Daryl didn't take no shit from nobody. Daryl had balls size of golf balls. I mean, he was a tough dude. He'd stand toe to toe with you. And some people would just say, hey man, it's 5 of y'all, this ain't the movies. Like Ja Rule said, the dude with the gun wins. So, you know, most of us just say, hey man, this is not worth me getting killed over. Here's my shit. You know, I'll work another day, I'll live another day to work to get the same stuff back. And I guess Daryl wasn't having it. And Daryl went up against about 3 dudes, and they beat him something terrible, and they broke his jaw. He had to have his jaw wired shut. And I was like, man, you know, Daryl had a lot of unfortunate incidents during that time. Number 3, Jewel Food Store is like UPS. And probably most don't notice this unless you work for the company. The majority, I would say, and this I'm just guessing here, 90% of UPS and Jewel Food Store employees are part-time. The majority of guys you see working there are part-time unless you're a department head, a manager, supervisor. And I was so fortunate, and I was such a good hard worker that I was actually promoted to full-time. I went from 83rd and King Drive to 87th and Stony. And I remember my boss, and he was a really stern dude, and really nobody kind of liked him. His name was Harold Hall, and I shouldn't be mentioning his name, but I'm doing it anyway. But I respected Harold as I got older. It wasn't about me liking him or him liking me. It's about getting the job done. And that's what Harold Hall was about. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to come in there and gain friends. He's like, this is business and I'm going to treat it that way. And I'm expecting you to do what I asked you to do business-wise. So, again, it's not that I didn't like him, but he was pretty stern and a good guy, you know. And, you know, he thought so much of me because he realized how hard of a worker was that he actually recommended I get promoted to full-time. And again, 90% of Jewel Food Store work staff is part-time. So that says a lot when you become full-time because they don't put too many people in full-time status. So that's how hard of a worker that I was, and I impressed him. So I got sent over to the 87 in the Stony Island location. And it was interesting because sometimes it's hard for you to make that transition, and because I was used to, you know, working part-time and then playing in the band and having a little more free time to spend with my girl or whatever. And I went from, you know, 16 hours to 40 hours. I was like, man, it's a whole lot of my time being taken away now. And I think the first week I was like, man, I don't want to do this. So I went back to my old stuff. I said, man, I don't think I want to do this, man. I want to go back to part-time and come back east. Like, it's too late. You know, you got to stay over there. And he said, anyway, let me let you in on something that you didn't know. We were about to close this store. So you was going to end up getting transferred somewhere else or leaving anyway. So you know, stay over there and stick it out. And within 2 weeks, you know, I kind of settled down and got settled in, and I wasn't really tripping and panicking anymore, you know. And it was, you know, we worked hard at the first store. We got there, it was even harder because it was a bigger store. And I was up to the challenge because, like I told you guys, I was there like 17 years, you know. And what I noticed about Jules, you know, versus my corporate job, a lot of people are under the impression, he worked at a food store, he bagging groceries, he ain't making that much money. In the 80s, I was making $12 an hour, okay? In the 80s, you know? And the benefits were good, and we used to get 2 raises a year. And the benefits were as good as, if not better than the corporate, because when I went into corporate, we got introduced to that, what they call that bullshit medical plan. HMO nonsense. That's the worst thing they ever could have done to his health plan. And when I worked at Jules, I had Blue Cross Blue Shield, go anywhere, anytime. You didn't have to be, you know, with HMO, you got to go to the doctor within this circle or plan. And if not, you got to get a referral from him to go somewhere else nonsense. It was just some bullshit. You know, it wasn't like it used to be. And then as far as the 401k plan, most corporate jobs say if you put in some, we'll match it. Jules was like, we just put in some for you. And then if you put in some, we'll match it. You know, so when I left Jules, because I didn't know that, I was a young dude, I didn't know all that stuff, because they would, I think, mail you this little booklet, and most of us didn't read it. And when I left Jules, like I told you guys, I just stopped coming because I just couldn't bring myself to just saying I resign. The end, this career or this time in my life era is over, and I didn't want it to be. But you know, as you get older, change come about, and you gotta make change with it. So I get a letter about maybe 6 months later. It was the retirement plan thing, and I got a nice little check. I'm like, whoa, you know. And I took that check, put it down payment on the car. But, you know, as I was working there, that money was accumulating. Then when I left, they cut me a check, and it's like, okay, adios, amigo. So again, you know, the benefits and the plans were great. Because again, I didn't have to put anything into that. They were putting it in there. The company was putting it in there. And they, again, if I would have put something in there and knew that, and I wish I would have, that they would have even matched it more. But next one, some people I forgot to mention, and the reason why I forgot to mention this individual, because when I think back on our friendship, I think more on the music side, because we actually started working together at Jewel Food Store. Then he became the lead singer of one of the bands I was in. His name is Theodore Terry. And what was so cool about Ted, and as you get older, you realize that, man, I knew these guys were talented, but I didn't realize how talented they were until I got older. And other people that I interact with musically couldn't do what they do, because I was the writer of the band. So I wrote all the material, the lyrics, the music, and I can't sing, you know, but I sang them what's called scratch vocals. And he took it, cleaned it up, changed some of the melody in it to make it sound better as a singer. And it's like I gave him something that was okay. When he finished with it, it was perfect. You know, so a shout out to Ted. And one day I hope I can run into Ted again and we can do some more music stuff. And there was a lady that worked with us named Felicia. Felicia was about 4 feet something. She was like a Shaka Khan powerhouse. I mean, that woman could sing. And I remember we got hired to do some banquets and some weddings, I think, something like that. And we all did a good job. And let me see. Oh, okay. And I'm going to wrap this up because, again, this is just, memories of working at Jules. And there were some good memories. One of my favorite cars was my 1978 Chevy Monte Carlo with a 305 block engine, 8-cylinder. That little thing moved out. It's the same car that Denzel Washington rode in and what was that? When he played the crooked cop. I forgot the name, man. Training Day, yeah, with Ethan Hawke. Love that car. That was one of my favorite cars. And I remember one day I drove it to work on 87 in Stony, parked it in the parking lot. All of a sudden I heard boom, and I looked out the window. Some motherfucker was driving down 87 in Stony, drunk out of his mind. There's the curve, there's the sidewalk, there's the cinder block for the parking lot in Jules, and there the cars. He drove over all of them, smashed up my damn car. And I was quite upset because I was like, man, this was my car. So then I actually bought another one to take the parts off that car, to put it on this car to revive it. And that was like a 5 to 7 year project, and I just kind of got bored with it, or had bought another car, so it just sat in my mother's garage for like 10 years. And my neighbor seen it. He said, "Oh, what's up with that car? I'm like, you want it?" He went and got a battery and drove it out the same day. That car had been sitting for 10 years, And I remember that day. And we tried to sue the guy for damages in the car. This is before there was mandatory car insurance. So he didn't have any insurance. So we were instructed to take his ass to court, which we did. We won our settlement. Then he turned around and filed bankruptcy. Nobody got shit. That was just the breaks. I thank God I didn't hire a lawyer, because the lawyer's like, you need to hire me so I can represent you. I said, some telling me don't do that. Just go down there yourself. So I would have to pay the lawyer for us losing or winning, but not getting no money. And here's an interesting story. When I worked on 87 in Stony, the truck drivers, Central Receiving, we would take in product, and we would take it in from the back of the store, because there's a special dock for them bringing up, the milk and things of that nature in. Because nowadays I see a lot of people Central Receiving in the front of the store. They come in the front when they're supposed to come in the back, the Central Receiving area. So there was this little tunnel area in the back before you can get to the back, because here's the parking lot, then you drive through the little tunnel thing, and then you go up to the dock. And the truck driver said, he came into the store, he said, hey man, I can't get my load in because there's a car blocking the little thing. So we had to go out there, because it's like, who's parking back there? We didn't park back there. So we get back there and the little car just start rocking. It's like, oh shit. And Stony Island, for those who don't know, it's like the motel strip. There's a number of motels up and down there. So after you get your party on, you take your person or a person to the motel and do your thing. So apparently we assuming this, and this is totally speculation, that dude went to a club, spent up all his money on wine and whatever. Then when it was time to take her to, the spot, he didn't have enough money or no more money. So they decided to go, back seat 50, 60 style. So, my manager had the daunting task of going up to the car and tapping on the window. Said, dude, you got to move, man. I know you're trying to get your groove on, but you can't be up in here. So the guy, then he drove off. But that was kind of interesting, that car back there just rocking. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. I got one more story. And this is really not a positive one, but, the truth is the truth. We all know the relationship that the police department have in the black community, especially in large communities or cities like New York, Chicago. And we were living in coast of Chicago, and we was coming home from work one day. And I forgot the name of this guy, because he used to sometimes drive me home, and I appreciate it. I forgot his name, because there was another guy, I forgot to mention his name, was Wayne, and Wayne used to always get into it with Julius. But we were on our way actually to Paul's house, because like I told you guys, Paul used to work with us, Daniels, and he would invite us over for breakfast in the morning, cook us breakfast, and we watch these MTV videos, Prince in the Time, and other artists. So that night we wasn't having breakfast because I think we got off about 2 in the morning. Because usually if we get off like 6 in the morning, we go do breakfast with Paul. But this guy was just one of my coworkers was dropping me, Paul, and I think another individual home, dropping them off. So this guy had a brown Chevy Impala, the big car, a brown one. Now keep in mind the color regarding this story. The color that we were driving was a brown Chevy. So we driving, it was raining. All of a sudden, detectives pull us over. We get out the car, they get out the car, it's raining, they got guns out. Get up against the motherfucker. Got our hands over there. He going through our pockets. I had a box cut. He said, "What you got this for?" I said, I use this as in my place of business. I work for Jewel Food Store. I'm a night store clerk. Grocery store, night clerk, grocery clerk. And, he checked us out, and then he said the reason why we pull us over because there was a report of a robbery, a couple of blocks down the street, and the description said it was a Chevy Impala. But the Chevy Impala that they were looking for was blue. We were driving a brown one. And you know what he said after? He made sure, checked out that we were okay and we wasn't criminals. We just hardworking dudes coming off work. He had the audacity to say this shit to us. I wish the car was green or blue. So he was implying he wished we were the guys that had done wrong. Instead of saying, "I apologize, gentlemen. We're just trying to do our job, keep the street safe. You check out okay. Have a good evening." Still giving us that. He gave us that bullshit. So this been going on for a long time, and now unfortunately it's becoming deadly where young black men and even women are being pulled over for minor traffic stops, and when the smoke clears, they're dead. They didn't kill anybody. They didn't commit a crime. They haven't done anything illegal, and they lose their lives. So I'm gonna leave you guys with that, and I hate to leave you with something like that instead of something uplifting, but again, the truth is the truth, whether it's an ugly truth or a good truth. So until next time, Jewel Food Store Tales Part 2. Coming soon, Jewel Food Store Tales Part 3. Thanks for watching. Take care.